Welcome back to Continuing the Conversation. I'm Nick. We often talk about the promise of AI, the efficiency, the transformational effect. But what if the reality is less about the shiny new tech and more about the uncomfortable truths it reveals about our own organization? What if AI is actually acting as a lens or an X-ray, exposing the hidden flaws that have been ignored, the systemic problems within the organization that have just been worked around? And worse, what if the excitement around AI is leading us and leading organizations to go after solutions before they really have defined what the problems are? Today, we'll be diving into AI's role as an organizational mirror, X-ray, and the dangerous allure of solutionism, of we've got a fix, but we don't have a problem. To guide us through this less traveled territory, I'm thrilled to welcome back Rob, CEO of Charmed IQ. Rob, it's great to have you back, and looking forward to hearing your unique perspective on this.
Thank you, Nick. Thanks for joining on this. This is an interesting one. We try to pick as many interesting topics as we can. And one of the things that we're seeing across the board with everyone is that folks are just starting to buy tools and they're just jumping in and going. And what's interesting is anytime you have a new technology that you need to bring into the organization, or anytime we have as disruptive of a change as we're starting to see come down the pipe here with AI, is you have to really sit down and figure out where would these things fit within your organization. You have to take a look at what your organization does. How does it do it? How did those processes get there? How long have they been there? And so forth. You have to step back and take an inventory of what's going on. This is anytime you have these things. Remember back when the internet first came into play, the world worked the same way all the time. And now we're in the place where you got to take a look.
Rob, you've suggested that AI implementation often acts, again, as a lens, an X-ray. Instead of AI causing problems, instead of it being disruptive, more often it's highlighting pre-existing conditions, pre-existing problems. You've got chaotic data, siloed communications, a lack of a clear strategy. When we hear about struggles like getting data prepared for AI or getting the teams aligned, are we just seeing legacy problems or old organizational ghosts in the new technology?
So great question with that one. If you remember, we can pick a couple of changes, massive changes that have happened. One was when the internet came into play. Two was when mobile came around and we all started to think about those devices differently. Three is the recent big data revolution that happened. And every one of these, we had to kind of rethink what it is that we were doing, think about how we were doing it, think about how our organization fit within these things. Like, can we do something? Are there enabling technologies? Is there assistance where we didn't have assistance before? Are we doing something one way that doesn't have to be done that way anymore? I always think about processes as kind of like gap fillers. Like you have a bigger process that you're trying to do and you have these little sub processes that you put in there. And you're like, I know how to do step A and I know how to do step B. And we have something that we fill in between to go from step A to step B. And sometimes we insert people into those things. Sometimes we have other processes in there to make those things happen. Anytime you have these types of changes, you have to go in there and look at these processes and you have to think about, why do these people exist? Why do these roles exist? Why do these processes exist? Why do we have all these artifacts floating around our environment? And so these are, again, the times where you have to go into your organization. You have to look at everything that you're doing and you can't assume what you knew yesterday. The examples that I use with our customers are things like, I worked with a company that was scanning energy bills. So if you look at a large company like Whole Foods, they have thousands of locations and each one of those locations may have many different energy bills that they're getting in: gas, light, heating, etc. And just for those organizations to know systemically how everything's running, they had to go through and find vendors who could scan in all of their both legacy and incoming bills from like PG&E or General Electric or whoever the heck was providing their electricity and, again, power, water, etc. That was like a thing. You had to hire a vendor, and even if maybe you did it in-house and maybe you hired somebody like an intern to scan these things and so forth. And what's interesting is we build these processes around that process. Maybe your vendor, you have a whole process where you ship them these letters from the mail and hand it to them. and then they come back as a CSV file, and you have a data load process, and then you have another load process. And you just wanted one thing, which is to figure out how all of your spend is going across all your store locations. And now you have 50 processes that try to do all this stuff. And what's interesting today is the ability to take image data and hand it to large language models and have it do useful things with it. You can take an entire massive process like that to change it to literally somebody snap a picture with their cell phone, which is maybe something your front of the house can do for you and things like that. So what I'm trying to bring up here is there's this convergence of looking at all of the things that you do and why you do it, and then looking at all of the things that new technology can enable. And sometimes you don't know either of those buckets. You have to spend time to learn what your processes are, and you have to spend time to learn what those new enabling technologies are. But again, now is the time to start doing that.
Okay. So AI would act as a more of exposing these problems. It's not going to be the solution for it. It's more of a diagnostic tool.
So what's interesting with that question is everyone, again, we find people just going out and they're like, well, everyone's talking about AI, so we have to get ChatGPT, or we have to get Grammarly, or we have to get whatever it is. And that's a solution looking for a problem. And what I'm trying to advocate here is recognize that there are new tools that are available. Don't go run out tomorrow and go buy said new tool. Start looking at your organization as a whole. If you've listened to some of our other videos and podcasts, I keep trying to advocate for this adaptability index. So we had IQ before. EQ might be the new IQ, where you have to really start to think about, like, how do you communicate with both now humans, customers, and agents, machines. And now there may be this AQ, which is what's your adaptability quotient? How quickly can your organization adapt to these changes? If there's one thing that we know that's going to be happening over the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years through the end of the decade is that you're going to get incremental changes and advances in intelligence through machines. And so every time a new one of those comes out, how are you going to adapt to that? So is your organization in a position where, like, you haven't done an internal audit recently to, again, look at your processes or look at your tools or what people are doing? And again, I would advocate, rather than just go buy a new tool and do a thing, spend a little bit of time now, because this is going to happen. And it's crazy. Every new, just as I keep saying in all these podcasts, we're having weekly changes in the number of models that are available and their capabilities and their abilities. And so if things are changing on a weekly basis, what does that mean for an organization that may have not done an internal review of their processes in the past, 4 years? Like, what does that mean? Now you're going to have to start doing that on a daily, weekly, monthly, you're going to have to refocus on these things.
So, okay, if you're putting the organization underneath an X-ray, underneath a lens, you're exposing it, but there's always a trend towards a solutionism. Hey, let's get the leaders need to be excited about what AI can do. Like I said, you've got the problem of multiple vendors sending you energy bills, and all you want as a leader is, I just want to know what our spend is. What are we spending? You've got all these other processes underneath here, but there tends to be, leaders tend to say, let's get this in here, and they skip what is the problem definition. The problem is not that I don't know the spend. That is a problem. The other problem is I've got 50 stores with 25 different vendors for 3 different services, so 75 things I have to go through. I mean, how do you? I've got a solution. How do you define what the problem is?
I would say the first step is to recognize and to rehash what it is. Because again, what's funny about the minutia is you originally had an ask of, like, what's my spend on energy? And then it ended up turning into 50 different workflows that you work through, all of which were vendor specific based on the technologies that were available today. And what ends up happening in a lot of organizations is you end up focusing on the minutia of that individual process. So you forget that the original question was, what's my daily, weekly, monthly spend on energy? And it turns into, like, this problem that you're having with a vendor and getting a CSV file back and loading it into the database, and your database is maybe running out of space or something. So you're focused on these little daily tactic things, and you're like, well, can the AI solve my load the data from the CSV into my database problem? And that's like solving this little sub problem, which is like, but Instead, can I solve the bigger problem of like, how do I figure out my total spend? Maybe the problem now is just you simply have a directory that has all of your bills from the month in it. And you just simply give that to the LLM and say, just give me the total. Like maybe it doesn't go into a database anymore. Maybe it's just like the individual rows and records don't. Maybe that's passed off. So what I'm trying to get at here is, again, a lot of companies, once they have processes, you end up focusing on the intricacies of those process rather than, and solving the intricacies of those process rather than go back to the top of the tree and say, well, why did we put this process in place? What is this process solving? And maybe we don't even have that problem anymore, which is sometimes kind of funny, is you have these processes that run that solve a solution that's not a problem anymore. So again, my ask of folks is, before you just go looking for a solution, before you implement a solution, or before you go looking for a solution to a tiny microscopic problem of a larger set of problems, you roll that back up to the top and see, can the technology just make this whole problem go away?
Okay, so you got two things you've brought up, which is the solutionism, like you said, we've got a solution, and the X-ray effect, the exposure of some of the systemic problems. Do these phenomena feed on each other? Is there a bit of a hurry up kind of, we need to implement some kind of exciting AI solution that keeps the leader from actually addressing, we don't know what the problem is here. We've got multiple things we have to address. How do they prioritize them? How do they come and take deep organizational problems and fix them with the right tools?
What's been interesting over the past year, you're seeing all of these companies come out with AI-enabled versions of their product, and for no reason. It just, they had to get on the AI bandwagon. And what's interesting is that they didn't add a lot of value to what it was that you're doing. I'll admit, we're starting to see it now. We're starting to finally see, like, oh, wow, adding AI to the product in this way really advanced it. So one of the obvious ones are, everyone's like, in a tool like we're using to do this podcast, transcripts. That used to be a pain in the butt to get those things. But now one of the clear features that you can enable in a product is basically voice to text, or as we were just talking about in other cases, image to text and so forth. So again, what's interesting is, as people jump into enabling it, just like, I got to get on the AI bandwagon. Like, I'm already behind, I'm whatever. And then we just slap some AI thing on a solution that doesn't provide value to the customer. So then what you have to really do is go back and where isn't value being provided to the customer? What additional value can we provide in our tool using these things? And so I would say, don't use AI for AI's sake in order to get the AI label on your product. Because where you're going to find its value is, again, some of these back-end processes where you, again, just like the one we were using as an example here of, I had to go to a vendor in order to take my energy bills and turn them into CSV files. Like, maybe that just all goes away. And that's not something, sure, sexy, flashy that I can tell my end customers, but at least I'm starting to get my organization into a place, and I'm starting to learn where these technologies can be applied. And sure, maybe you won't get to put that AI moniker on your product at the end of the day, but the goal is not to, just because your competitor is sticking it on there, they just burnt a whole lot of time building a feature out that probably no one's using or getting value from. So you want to win the war, not win the battle in these cases. So look for the cases that are going to allow you to be sustainable in the long run. Again, go back to those processes, go back to those ideas.
So address the root cause of the problems, as opposed to, just the flashy, having an AI project that ends up failing because you didn't fix the underlying issues.
Yes. Yeah, because that's another one, which is interesting too, is a lot of people, they're just trying to feed their data into some AI system to make it available to customers. But the root problem may be it's just really hard to get their data out. So it's almost better to solve that problem for the next whatever is going to come along within this AI revolution, rather than, again, just slap something crappy together and try to give it to your end customers. They can focus on the internal processes that'll make the next generation easier.
So the path forward might not be, or it sounds like, is not just throw the latest AI tool on top of whatever your process is or whatever your building is. What practical steps can leaders take to resist the solutionism? To what can they do to actually take these insights from the X-ray, from that vision AI is giving you? You're seeing the problems now. How can you fix these problems? Is there what kind of disciplines do they need to cultivate to diagnose these problems thoroughly before they say AI is going to be the answer?
I would say there's no one silver bullet on these things. Advice is going to be simply recognize that there may be a problem. Recognize that you may just be trying to get that AI stamp on your product rather than, again, truly understanding where there's value or where you might be able to gain efficiencies from these things. So my advice is always is to simply take that step back and say, what are we doing and why are we doing it? Just do maybe a SWOT analysis and look at your strengths and weaknesses. And is this an opportunity that's potentially advanced? So nothing, I would say the usual thing, which is take that second to take the deep breath. Don't be reactive to the fact that there are a whole lot of shiny tools out there. But then I would also say the flip side, which is, you can't spend 18 months doing a vendor analysis and trying to get the thing because you're going to miss this whole opportunity that's here. So there's a delicate balance between overly analyze, analysis paralysis, and then just jumping the gun and we missed an opportunity here. Just be diligent, focus on, are you going to be adaptable as the next run comes through? And again, don't feel the need to just jump into this without first taking a look around and making sure you understand what your process is.
Do some organizational build out for diagnosing before just implementation.
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Well, what fundamental shifts in the leadership mindset does this all point to? Navigate AI effectively. What do leaders need to do? Do they need to be less fascinated with slapping the label on there? Do they need to be more, organizational health, strategic clarity? What skill set do they need to prioritize so they're asking these right questions?
Yeah, again, this goes back to what I think is the key to all this stuff, which is how do you become an adaptable organization in this rough times? I think we are all looking for a new set of paradigms that we can do. And I'll say, I think we're going to have to start working together. One of the reasons why we're doing these podcasts is just to get people to start thinking about these things, to get people to start talking about these things. We don't have enough people coming together with behind the scenes stories about where the struggles are. That's why we're doing this. So I would say I don't have any particular new insights for people to do here other than the fact that we got to start talking about this. And hopefully this is the start of that.
Rob, thank you. This reframes the AI conversation entirely. It's not just about adapting the newest technology. It's about having the courage to look at the mirror that AI holds up to your organization and resisting the temptation to chase the easy answers. It seems that the most crucial work might be looking at our own strategies, our own underlying issues and systems, and not just the algorithms. For everyone watching, I hope this challenges you to think differently about your own AI initiatives. Are you really diagnosing the problems? Are you looking at the solution and trying to find a problem, or are you truly taking the time to look at the problem first? Let us know your thoughts. Links to Charmed IQ and our previous discussions are below. Join us next time on Continuing the Conversation.